Today's Manna 가스펠 라이프 철치 데니얼 킴 목사가 보내드리는 시간입니다.
Good morning to the friends and family of KCBS. My name is Daniel and welcome to today's Manna. I want to start by asking you a question here today. Have you ever felt like what you're doing does not matter? Like your contribution is too small to make a difference? Maybe it is you showing up to serve in a church nursery when only 3 kids show up. Maybe it's praying for someone when you wonder if God is even listening. Maybe it's trying to live faithfully when the world around you seems to be falling apart. I want to take you to Zechariah chapter 4 verse 10, where God says, "Do not despise these small beginnings, for the Lord rejoices to see the work begin." Let me tell you what was happening. The Israelites had returned from exile and were trying to rebuild the temple. But compared to Solomon's magnificent temple, this new one looked actually pathetic. The foundation was laid, and older people who remembered the first temple actually wept because this one seemed so insignificant. Can you imagine? They're doing God's work, but they're discouraged because it does not look impressive enough. And God says, don't despise small beginnings. Let me give you 3 practical takeaways. First, God measures differently than we do. We measure by numbers, by size, by impressiveness, and God measures by faithfulness. When you show up to that small group with only 4 people, God sees it. When you send an encouraging text to someone who's struggling, God also sees that as well. When you tithe even though your budget is tight, God sees it. I think about a woman in our community who started making meals for new moms. She was thinking, this is so small, I'm just one person making casseroles. But over 5 years, she was able to serve over 200 families. She didn't start big, but she started small and stayed faithful. Secondly, let's remember that small beginnings often lead to big endings. Think about this. Jesus started his ministry with 12 ordinary guys. A ragtag group of fishermen, a tax collector, a political zealot, nothing impressive by worldly standards. But look at what happened. The small beginning changed the entire world. Your small group today might be producing the next generation of leaders. Your faithful giving might fund a missionary who reaches thousands. Your simple act of hospitality might be a moment someone encounters Jesus for the first time. Don't judge the seed by its size. Judge it by what it can become. Third, God rejoices in the work in the beginning, not just the work completed. This is huge. God does not wait until you finish to celebrate. He rejoices when you start. When you take the first step of obedience, heaven is already cheering. Maybe you've been putting off something that God has called you to do because you think, I need to wait until I'm ready, until I have more time, more resources, more knowledge. But God is saying, just start. I rejoice to see the work begin. I heard a story about a pastor who felt called to start a prayer ministry at his church. He was thinking, I'm going to wait until I have at least 20 people committed. But one night, he just decided to show up at the church and pray. One person showed up, and they prayed together for an hour. The next week, 2 people came, then 4 people, to 8 people. In 6 months, there were 50 people gathering every week to pray, but it started with 1 person showing up. So here's my challenge for you as I close my time here today. What is the small beginning that God is calling you to stop despising? Maybe it is starting to read your Bible for just 10 minutes a day, inviting 1 neighbor over for dinner, serving in 1 ministry at church, having 1 honest conversation with your spouse about your faith, forgiving someone even though it feels small and insignificant. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait until it feels big enough. This is a calling from God for you to just begin. Because God does not despise small beginnings, but rather He rejoices in them. You must remember that God does not measure success the way that the world does. So you and I must be praying that God would remember us as being faithful in the small things. You must pray that God would give you the courage to start what you and I have been called us to do, even though when it feels insignificant. Friends, I'm here to remind you that God rejoices when you and I take the first step of obedience. The choice is yours, the ball is on your court, and you and I are encouraged to take a leap of faith with a heart of obedience.
지금까지 가스펠 라이프 철치의 데니얼 킴 목사였습니다. 성경이나 예수 그리스도에 관해서 더 알기를 원하시는 분은 시카고 기독교 방송 전화 847-583 영원 구원으로 연락 바랍니다.